Okay. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Toilet Talk. So today, calm down. Today, I thought it would be fun, good, something. Pick your adjective, adverb, verb. I don't know. I wasn't a grammar guy. Anyways, today we're going to talk about being an entrepreneur and the seasons that go with that, and how to pick support staff, support people uh, in your life. So my wife has a business that's pretty successful. She's built it up in a pretty short time. And when it came time to choosing a partner, um, there were some decisions that just like had to be made on what that looked like to have the support from your partner, because you already had a good team in place and you basically needed someone to come in and not mess things up. And enter me. And I think something that was beneficial to us getting together and being a good team, baby kicking,
Oh, big time. That one hurt a
baby's
little.
kicking. I think something that made us a good team was the fact that my family is also entrepreneurs. And so there's just different seasons that come with being an entrepreneur. Depends on your business, what it looks like. But for us, we've got a greenhouse, we've got a mini golf, we've got a corn maze, we've got a Christmas store. So every season looks a little bit different for us. And that makes it so that there's times that I can get away and I'm not as needed here. But there's also kind of like our non negotiable times when like no one leaves, we're on lockdown. And that's pretty much like May long weekend in the greenhouse season and pretty much all of the fall for corn maze season. But then my winter slows down and I don't do too much, which is nice. It's a lot of planning for the next year and stuff. But as far as like being on the property, having to do a bunch of things, entertaining customers and stuff, it's a lot slower of a season, which is nice because Steph's business, her busy time is kind of in the fall,
Yeah.
like around Black Friday in the States. So like end of November. Um, so we're able to balance each other well in that aspect. But I think it's crucial for entrepreneurs to have like a supportive partner.
Mhm.
And for me, I've been in some relationships in the past where they just didn't get it. They just didn't understand that you have these busy seasons, you have these slower seasons. Um, I mean, my friends used to joke with me that like I was in prison, and it was a prison of my choosing. Um, but it can feel that way at times, I guess, is just being locked down. I don't have a typical like 9 to 5 where you get weekends off and stuff. And it's one of the best things, but it can also be stressful and tiring and hard. Um, but being an entrepreneur, it's just different. And if you're not one, or have friends that are one that you like really see their day to day, you just don't get it. And so I think us both being entrepreneurs has really helped us navigate this whole thing. But like I've mentioned before, like I don't think I'm your typical. I don't conform to the typical like gender roles
No.
in a relationship. Like I do most of the housework, most of the cleaning, most of the cooking, because I know that Steph needs to not focus on that to be able to like run her business as well as she can and as well as she does. So it's all about like finding a balance with your partner and understanding each other's busy times, which I think we talked about like so much off the start
Yeah.
to like really understand this is when you're busy, this is when I'm busy, this is when you need to pick up more slack, this is when I need to pick up more slack. But why don't you just like speak to that aspect of like, were you nervous like finding a partner that would understand it, or what like went through your head as we were starting to like navigate our relationship?
Um, honestly, I was like, doesn't sound so terrible, but I've been in relationships where like me working was an issue. And like I'm a very communicative person where it's like, hey, like this month I have like this much going on. I am on extra calls or this person can't be here. So like I have to like pick up the slack and like work a lot. Right. And like at that time I also had a clinic. So like I was busy a lot and not around a ton, but like communicating like, hey, this is a really busy season. I need to get this done. Or like when hockey players were coming, like it was playoff time when I was working in the clinic as an osteopath, like I was like on call basically. Like kid messes up their shoulder, it's gotta rehab it, make sure they can get ready to play for like the next game, right? Like it's a very intense time. But I'm big on like communicating that stuff. And for me, it came to a point of like, not this person was like not a great partner and stuff like that. Like he was not a bad person, but like just understanding the seasons and what that like what support looks like and picking up the slack and communicating that it's like certain seasons I have to do more and certain seasons you'll have to do more. One person will have to cook a bit more and meal prep and all those kinds of things to like set yourself up for success that way. And for me, going into dating you when we first met, it was like I'm not going to I am not going to be made to feel guilty for like working hard, and like I will make time for us and we will communicate that, and like we talk about which nights we have free, like because we communicate every week. We do our marriage journal and okay, what does our schedule look like, which night are we like this is our time, this is what we're doing. Or I'll be like, hey, I have a lot of messages I need to answer, is it okay if I do that tonight? Like it's we communicate these things. If we get an event or we're seeing friends or things like that, then obviously no, I'm not going to do that. But like it takes a lot of communication and like not feeling like not taking it personally. Like the fact that I'm in a busy season or you're in a busy season and like we spend a little less time together than we usually do does not mean we love each other less or we're not supportive of each other. It's just this is a season and there's seasons of grind and seasons of push and pull, and that's really just how it goes. And I was not going to like you need to sort your own stuff out if you're going to be dating an entrepreneur and have these conversations, because like if you feel like less than because they've got a season of push where it's like, hey, there's dead, like imagine dating someone who's doing taxes, during tax season, probably not going to see them. But if you're going to take that personally, that's more of a you problem than a them problem. You know what I mean? So it's like having to communicate that stuff and realizing that like I don't have to worry that like you feel unloved because of that. Right. And I mean, but we touch base so much and we communicate, and we always talk about like are you feeling good? Like how's this? How's that? Like we communicate a lot, and I think that's important when you're dating people who are an entrepreneur, because otherwise like it's very easy to grow apart, I would feel.
And I think like let's dive into communication here in a second and like what that looks like. But I think one of the big things too is, like you said, just because you are in a season of grind doesn't mean that you love me any less. And I think that's something that, a lot of people don't really understand or sort out for themselves. It's like, just because you're busy doesn't mean that you don't have time for me. It means you're busy, and like I know this is your busy time, and just you can't take it personal. Like when you're dating an entrepreneur, it's like there's no guaranteed paycheck coming in. Like I don't have a 9 to 5 or a government job or something like this where I'm guaranteed my money like no matter what.
And time off and holidays.
Yeah. It's like you have to work for that money to come in. And sometimes you might have a sale, or like it's just a busier season. And that's not, this is going to sound kind of bad, that has nothing to do with your partner. That has nothing to do with how much you appreciate them or love them or care for them in that moment. If you can understand that like there's going to be just seasons, and seasons, they come and they go. They don't last forever. And like if you look at the spring season has so much water and so much rain and melt
Yeah.
and snow runoff and stuff to prepare for the next season, for the growth and like the flowers and the grass and the trees to bloom. But if you didn't have that season before, you wouldn't have this season that's beautiful later on.
Well, like look at farmers. Like harvest time, it's like our doula even said, if it's a good day and they can harvest, the partner isn't going to be in the hospital. They're going to be out in the field because of the weather. Like, and you don't take that personally. And I think like a big thing is like just understanding like what your quality time looks like changes.
Yep.
And like as long as you're like saying how like that you're appreciative and like things like that and like don't take the person for granted, then I think that's the biggest thing. Like Taylor tells me all the time, like, thank you for how hard you work so we can like go on a trip or we can do this or that. And I always say like, thank you for making supper and for doing the dishes and things like that. But also it's like, I know that if I didn't work that hard, I wouldn't get the quality time on like a vacation with him. And like, he knows that if he didn't cook and I had to do that, we'd literally have no quality time together.
Well, it's like, even look at like our honeymoon.
Oh gosh, people are gonna think I'm crazy.
We went on our honeymoon and we were gone for 7 days. And every single morning, you would get up, we would like have some breakfast or mimosas. More me than you.
Yeah.
But then it was like, if I don't make the space for Steph to have this time for an hour and a half, 2 hours in the morning, before the day even like really gets rolling, you're just going to feel the pressure of having not worked or checked in or made sure that things were flowing smoothly. And it was going to be not a bad time, but you weren't going to be fully present if you hadn't done those things. And that was something that we discussed before we even got there. I was like, because we'd been on a few other trips before, and it was like, if I can just work for like an hour, maybe 2 in the morning, I promise you I'll be more present. We'll have a better time. It'll be great. And so I knew this going in, that I didn't feel like, oh, we're on our honeymoon. Like you don't love me. You're not present. You're not here. It's like, if we carved out that time and we talked about that before, then I knew that the rest of our day was going to be so much better than it would have been if you hadn't done that in the morning to like bring yourself that peace. It's like, as an entrepreneur, there's always work to do.
Yeah. Always.
Like more than you can do in a day. And I think that's why so many people get burnt out and just want to go back to like a 9-to-5 with a guaranteed paycheck, because being an entrepreneur, it's like, yeah, you get to set your own hours, but there's not enough hours in a day for you to do everything that you need to do and still be present for your family and your spouse and different things like this. So if you can communicate, and we did an episode, well, this one will come out after that one, I'm pretty sure. We did an episode on communication, and like,
it's so important.
But I think like people say like, oh, communicate, and don't really understand what it is to communicate. And communication literally just comes down to, here's what I have up. Bang, 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 bang. Here's what you have up. Okay, now let's figure out
how we can support each other and make sure we still have quality time.
Yeah. And like, that's literally all it is. Communication is just like, I mean, there's nothing that Steph and I don't communicate about.
No.
Like our bathroom, like we talk about poop all the time. And
yeah, we do.
It just makes us like, I don't know if it makes us closer or if it makes us just this weird couple. But we're also like, we know everything about each other pretty much at any given point.
Yeah, we know what's going on.
And that makes it so much easier to have this quality time together, to understand the season that each other's in, and to be able to continue to grow together, because you're always growing, and you're either growing together or you're growing apart.
Well, and it's like, are you like communicating on where we're at in multiple areas? It's like, okay, I know that she's like maybe doesn't seem as present because like she's tired and has this and this going on. It has nothing to do with me and her feelings with me.
Right.
Like, I think that's a big thing, because like a lot of the time we run on assumptions is like, oh, I must have done something wrong, and like become insecure in that aspect of things. So I think the communication helps a lot there. But that being said, as an entrepreneur, you have to make sure that you communicate, and you have to make sure that like you say like why XYZ, and like still prioritize like your family and your relationships and stuff, because it's very easy to not.
Yeah.
So it does have to be something that you need to like actually like put an effort into. It doesn't rely solely on your partner who's not the entrepreneur, or vice versa, whatever. Like there has to be, you both have to prioritize it. And like Taylor said, like for me, if I know we're going on a trip, I pre-plan and get stuff as much done in advance as I can so I don't have to work. But like there's always emails or, you know, little fires that pop up. So for me, if I can check my email and like get a few things done, like in the morning for an hour and a half while we're having coffee and just relaxing, and then again check it at nighttime before we go out for dinner or something, I can be there and I can be present. And a lot of people are like, oh, you shouldn't work on vacation. It's like, if I didn't work for 7 days, I would come home from our honeymoon feeling horrific. Like it would have been a month of chaos and feeling behind. And it's like that cloud that's looming over you. And like everyone will be a little bit different. But like for us, like, yeah, I worked in the morning. Then you know what? Like we just sat by the pool and had a couple drinks and we read books and we visited, and it was so good and so relaxing, and we had great food. Like I wouldn't have been as present or like been able to read a book for fun if I had this like, oh, I have all this stuff that's like waiting for me.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it was interesting at Coaching Con. Like I asked pretty much the same question to all of these high level entrepreneur business owners. And it was like, how do you manage the overwhelm or the stress or all these things running a successful business with your family and your spouse and quality time and these things? And basically all of them had similar answers. And it was like, determine what's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And like some of them are divorced or don't have the best relationships, and they literally all pointed to the same thing: was I prioritized my business over my spouse or my family.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were just very encouraging in the, we're not going outside yet, dude, calm down,
just relax, boo-boo.
If you're not watching the video, you probably can't figure out what's going on. Well, you probably can figure out what's going on. Our dog just keeps coming into the bathroom and he wants to go feed the farm animals so bad, and he doesn't understand that we're doing a podcast.
We're a little busy, buddy.
But yeah, this hierarchy of desires, and your business is important, yes. But what's more important is your home life and your family and your spouse. And if you can make the time for these things, everything will be in harmony. And this dog. So I think that's the biggest thing with communication, is like understanding your needs and advocating for them. Like if you're feeling really down, or like you need just more time with your spouse or your kids or whatever that looks like, you need to make sure that you're both on the same page. You have to be a team. And we've talked about that before too. It's like being a good team player, you acknowledge your feelings, but you also have to take inventory of them and be like, is this real? Am I like fabricating something? Mm-hmm. Like if I sat around and was like, oh, Steph is answering messages and emails and doing all this stuff, and like she doesn't care about me, you can spiral so quickly into mm-hmm. this like negative emotions, negative feelings towards her and her business. And it's like, but what's really going on here? Like, what am I not dealing with that I need to look at and just take a step back and be like, is this justified feelings, or am I just in my feels because like I'm not feeling as cared for as I want to? And like that might be a legitimate thing. You might have to actually be like,
have that conversation.
Am I being cared for the way that I want to be cared for, or am I in my own head about this and like this is not really the reality of the situation?
Yeah, and it's just like like just ask for what you need
Yeah.
and like talk about that and compromise. Like even in our busiest seasons, we know every night we'll always like talk, pillow talk, and like sometimes it's like a 10-minute conversation because we're tired. Other times we talk for like an hour.
Mhm.
And in the morning, this is what we usually do with or without the mics on. So it's like we know even in our busiest seasons, like
We
at
still make
least
time for each other.
yeah, and at least a few times a week we're sitting here in the morning if our schedules don't align, whatever. But like
Cool.
we're pretty like we know we're gonna get that time. And if we want a little bit more time, it's like, hey, can we plan like I said, we sit down every Sunday. Hey, can we like look at our schedules and see what night we're doing something? And maybe like the date night's just like we're playing some cards while we're
Mhm.
watching Grey's Anatomy, whatever that might be. It's just time together. And like I think that's huge.
And I think like, you know, people say like have a date night every week, have this, have that, and it's like, but a
It's
date
not
night
always
doesn't
realistic either.
doesn't have to be extravagant either.
Mm-mm.
Like when I think date night, I literally just think like time with you.
Mhm.
We don't have to be going out somewhere. We don't have to be spending a bunch of money on something. We can literally be playing a game of cards and just like talking, spending time together, making sure that we're still making time for each other, even in our busiest seasons. And it's possible. Like we both have very busy seasons.
Mhm.
And even if it's just 20 minutes,
Well,
like
sometimes it's just coming to feed with you if I don't have calls. It's like, hey, I'm going to come feed the animals with you
Mhm.
for those 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like,
So I think let's start to wrap this up.
yeah.
But I think it's so important to be aware of your own needs and not over exaggerate them, and also be aware of your partner's needs. And that all comes from just like talk about it. Don't leave anything unsaid.
No.
Like with your spouse or your partner, it's a safe space. Like you can advocate for what you need and then also talk about what that really looks like and how realistic it is. And
Mhm.
relationships, oh, this is going to sound bad. Relationships are all about compromise. And it's compromising your needs and taking inventory of what do I really need and what would I like and what's just like realistic or not realistic at the time, and not taking it personally and remembering that like you're on a team. You're both
Yeah.
trying to like curate this life that you both want to have. And if you're talking about it, it's a lot more possible to get there
Mhm.
than leaving something unsaid, hoping that your partner is a mind reader and knows exactly
Yeah.
what you're feeling. Like just talk about it.
And that doesn't mean you're settling, because some people hear compromise like, oh, like then I have to like settle. It's like, no, like you talk and figure out a solution that works for both of you and that's realistic, and you're working together towards that. Like I think that's like a really big thing. And then like if that doesn't meet your needs, or like you talk about it and like needs still aren't being met, then that's a different story.
Mm-hmm. So putting a bow on it, entrepreneurs have seasons. If you're married to one or you are one, you know there's seasons and it's busy and it's crazy, but make time for what matters to you most. And your business should matter to you, but your spouse and your kids and these other things, like
People first.
they come first. And if you can figure out how to do that song and dance, you're going to be a lot happier in the long run.
Merlin, do you have to poop? Is that why you're whining?
No, he just wants to go outside. All right.
It's like you said it. You said it, Dad.
You said the words. Yeah, so you understand that English. All right. Thanks for tuning into our bathroom. It's another Toilet Talk. Adios.
Bye.